CBS, The Big Bang Theory. CBS built its empire on one thing: comfort television. From I Love Lucy to Two and a Half Men, they mastered the rhythm of laughter that feels familiar. But their crown jewel came in 2007, The Big Bang Theory. Nobody expected a show about four socially awkward scientists and their neighbor to become one of the most successful comedies in history. Yet within 3 seasons, it was pulling more than 18 million weekly viewers, something unheard of in the DVR and streaming era. It worked because Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady didn't write jokes. They wrote people. Sheldon's obsessive logic, Leonard's quiet longing, Penny's warmth. Every episode was a clash between intellect and emotion. CBS had cracked the formula for modern comfort. Brilliant minds who still can't figure out life. When it peaked around 2014, The Big Bang Theory was the highest paid sitcom in the world. Jim Parsons was earning $1 million per episode. Reruns filled half of TBS's primetime slots, and CBS's Thursday nights became unmovable. The show was mocked by critics for canned laughter, but it didn't matter. Audiences loved it. Its finale in 2019 pulled 18 million viewers, the kind of number networks hadn't seen since Friends ended. CBS didn't just find a hit, it created the last true broadcast sitcom phenomenon. The Big Bang Theory proved that in an era chasing irony and darkness, earnest geek humor could still own America. Even after ending, it kept CBS alive with young Sheldon, turning one supporting character into a billion-dollar spin-off machine. For CBS, this wasn't just a sitcom. It was proof that the formula still worked if you gave it heart, intellect, and just enough awkward silence to make everyone feel seen. NBC, Friends. NBC didn't invent the ensemble sitcom, but Friends perfected it. When it premiered in 1994, Seinfeld had already made NBC the network of cool. Yet Friends brought something warmer, a lifestyle fantasy disguised as comedy. 6 struggling 20-somethings in a New York apartment that none of them could realistically afford. But everyone wanted to live there anyway. The chemistry was lightning in a bottle. Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, Matthew Perry, and David Schwimmer. 6 actors with zero fame who turned into global icons within 2 seasons. By 1996, must-see TV Thursday wasn't a slogan. It was religion. People planned dinner around it. The show averaged 25 million viewers per week at its peak and pulled 52 million for its finale in 2004. Half of America watching 6 Friends say goodbye. NBC made billions off Friends, not just in ads, but syndication. Warner Brothers sold global rights for nearly $500 million, and reruns still air in over 100 countries. When Friends landed on Netflix in 2015, it became the platform's most-watched show for 4 straight years. The network's identity was cemented. Witty dialogue, urban charm, perfect casting, and enough emotional pull to make every joke land twice as hard. What made Friends special wasn't the coffee shop or the catchphrases. It was timing. In the 90s, America's idea of family was changing. Friends showed that your family could be the people you chose. NBC's risk to center an entire comedy on friendship instead of work or home life created a new blueprint every sitcom would chase for decades. Even today, the rhythm of Friends echoes in everything from How I Met Your Mother to New Girl. NBC owned Thursday nights because of it, and for 10 years, it taught the entire industry one truth: chemistry is everything. NBC had Seinfeld, The Office, and Parks and Rec, but none captured lightning like Friends. It wasn't just a sitcom, it was America's mood for an entire decade. ABC, Modern Family. ABC has always been television's safe zone, home to warmth, values, and family comfort. But by the late 2000s, the formula was dying. Viewers were tired of perfect sitcom families solving problems in 22 minutes. Then, in 2009, Modern Family arrived, and everything changed. It wasn't filmed in front of a live audience. There were no laugh tracks. Instead, it used mockumentary realism, shaky cameras, direct eye contact with viewers, and characters who felt painfully honest. 3 households, all connected through one extended family, showed every version of what family could look like in modern America. Traditional parents, trying to stay relevant, an older husband married to a younger Latina woman, and a gay couple raising an adopted daughter. It could have easily been chaos, but the writing was surgical. Each episode balanced emotional truth with razor-sharp timing. A baby's first steps could land seconds before a brutal punchline, and behind the humor was bold representation. In 2009, seeing a same-sex couple on mainstream ABC, kissing, arguing, and parenting just like everyone else, was revolutionary. Modern Family didn't preach it. It normalized it. The show swept 5 consecutive Emmy Awards for Outstanding Comedy Series, tying Frasier's all-time record. For 11 seasons, it never lost its heart. Sofia Vergara became a global star. Ty Burrell turned goofy dad energy into an art form. And Ed O'Neill, once the grumpy father from Married with Children, became America's lovable grandpa. ABC found its voice again. Modern Family wasn't just funny. It was healing. It reflected the messy, multicultural, awkward version of family that actually exists. It gave the network what Full House and Home Improvement once did, a reason to gather the entire country on a Wednesday night. When the final episode aired in 2020, over 7 million people tuned in. Not for closure, but gratitude. ABC had redefined family television for a new generation, proving that love, laughter, and imperfection were finally part of the same story. Fox, The Simpsons. If ABC taught America how to love, FOX taught it how to laugh at itself. Before The Simpsons, FOX was the underdog, a baby network with no real hits, desperate to compete with the big three. Then, in December 1989, a dysfunctional yellow-skinned family from Springfield walked onto primetime television, and everything changed. No one believed an animated show could carry an adult audience. But The Simpsons wasn't a cartoon. It was satire disguised as stupidity. Homer represented every lazy dad in America. Marge was every exhausted mom, and Bart, with his skateboard and chaos, became a pop icon overnight. Matt Groening's creation wasn't afraid of anything. It mocked the government, religion, capitalism, even FOX itself. Every episode was a mirror, warped, funny, and brutally honest. In its early years, The Simpsons was revolutionary. It proved that animation could be intellectual, emotional, and politically sharp. Writers like Conan O'Brien and Greg Daniels used it as a playground for clever absurdity that always hid a deeper truth. Episodes like Marge versus the Monorail or Lisa's Substitute are still studied today in screenwriting classes because they balanced chaos with humanity in perfect sync. By its peak in the late 90s, The Simpsons was pulling 15 to 20 million viewers weekly and had become a merchandising empire worth billions. Fox went from an underfunded experiment to a legitimate network powerhouse, all because of a cartoon family that argued over donuts. Even now, The Simpsons holds the record as the longest-running scripted series in American history, with over 750 episodes. Its influence is endless. It gave birth to Family Guy, South Park, Rick and Morty, and the entire adult animation genre. Without The Simpsons, FOX might never have survived, and satire as we know it might not exist. But what really made it immortal was how it hid heartbreak inside absurdity. Behind the gags and catchphrases, "Dough, eat my shorts," was a quiet story about a family that somehow, through every disaster, always ended up at the dinner table together. Fox didn't just air The Simpsons, it built its entire identity around it. One dysfunctional cartoon family turned a fledgling network into a cultural institution. And 30-plus years later, Springfield still hasn't stopped talking. HBO, Curb Your Enthusiasm. If network sitcoms are about warmth and timing, HBO's Curb Your Enthusiasm is about everything they can't say. No laugh track, no script, no safety net. Just Larry David, the man who co-created Seinfeld, playing a fictionalized version of himself, walking through real-life awkwardness like it's his personal battlefield. The premise sounds simple. A rich comedy writer annoys everyone he meets. But Curb turned that into 20 years of genius-level social discomfort. Larry David's philosophy was radical. Take the tiny frustrations everyone hides and explode them into war. A parking spot, a dinner invite, a charity donation. Nothing was too small to ruin a friendship. In traditional sitcoms, awkwardness ends with a hug. In Curb, it ends with a lawsuit. HBO let Larry break every rule. Scenes were unscripted. Actors got outlines, not dialogue. Every interaction felt alive. Because it was alive. You could see real hesitation, genuine laughter, actual tension. That's why it never aged. While most sitcoms rely on rhythm, Curb relies on chaos. And somehow, it's always the funniest person in the room who's also the most hated. Over the years, the show turned minor celebrity cameos into cultural events. Ted Danson, Wanda Sykes, Martin Scorsese, all willing to humiliate themselves in Larry's world. It didn't need ratings to prove its worth. It had influence. Curb shaped the entire tone of the 2000s adult comedy. The Office, Louie, Arrested Development, all trace their DNA back to Larry David's blunt realism. HBO didn't need another family sitcom or office mockumentary. It needed honesty. Messy, rude, uncomfortable honesty. And that's what Curb delivered for 2 decades straight. It taught the world that awkward silence could be more powerful than a punchline. Larry didn't play by the sitcom rulebook. He rewrote it, then mocked anyone who tried to follow. Fox Animation Block, Family Guy. If The Simpsons built the house of animated comedy, Family Guy that burned down the neighbors and called it art. When it premiered in 1999, Seth MacFarlane was a 25-year-old animator who somehow convinced FOX to fund a show that made The Simpsons look tame. At first, it failed. Cancelled in 2002, revived in 2005, cancelled again, then resurrected once more because fans wouldn't let it die. Family Guy didn't have viewers. It had an army. Its humor was brutal. Cutaway gags, political mockery, violent slapstick, offensive jokes about everything from religion to pop culture. But that's exactly what made it addictive. While other sitcoms tried to walk the moral line, Family Guy erased it. Peter Griffin wasn't a role model. Lois wasn't the voice of reason. Stewie wanted to kill his mother. And Brian, the dog, was somehow the most logical person in the house. It was chaos that worked. Fox realized this show didn't represent a family. It represented frustration, sarcasm, and rebellion. Every episode was a middle finger to traditional television, and fans loved it for that reason. Family Guy became the sound of early 2000s irreverence. Fast, loud, and unfiltered. Merchandise exploded, DVD sales went through the roof, and reruns became Adult Swim's backbone. By the mid-2000s, Seth MacFarlane wasn't just a showrunner. He was a cultural force with American Dad, and The Cleveland Show spinning off from the same world. Fox had built an entire animation empire out of his brain, and it started with one canceled sitcom that refused to die. But beneath all the crude jokes was something smarter. Precision. Family Guy used absurdity as commentary. It knew exactly what it was mocking, and that awareness gave it longevity. 25 years later, it's still running, still offensive, still sharper than it should be. If The Simpsons showed us who we are, Family Guy showed us what we pretend not to be: ignorant, flawed, and hilarious because of it. Fox's legacy didn't stop with Springfield. It lived on in Quahog, a fictional town that told the realest truth of all. Laughter doesn't need rules, just timing and guts. FX, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. No laugh track, no studio lights, just 5 terrible people running a bar in South Philly, and somehow creating the longest-running live-action sitcom in American history. When It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia premiered in 2005, the entire first season was filmed on a $100 budget. Literally, home camcorder, handheld lighting, and one dream: make a show about characters so morally broken that every episode feels like watching karma in real time. At first, nobody cared. The ratings were microscopic, but FX saw something others didn't: authentic chaos. It wasn't written to make you like the characters. It was written to make you question why you were laughing at them. The gang, Dennis, Mac, Charlie, D, and Frank, weren't friends. They were reflections of everything wrong with modern self-interest: narcissism, greed, pettiness, delusion. And that's what made it brilliant. While sitcoms like Friends and Modern Family made us feel good, Sunny made us feel uncomfortable, and then forced us to laugh at it. By season 4, the cult following was unstoppable. Danny DeVito joined the cast and turned the chaos nuclear. Episodes like The Nightman Cometh or Charlie Work proved that beneath the insanity was genius-level writing and direction. What looked like anarchy was actually mathematical timing. Each punchline a precise reflection of human stupidity. FX never treated Sunny as a mainstream product. It let the show breathe and offend freely. No network notes, no family lessons, no sentimental music. It became a laboratory for dark comedy, influencing everything from Community to Archer. And in 2021, when the show broke the record as the longest-running live-action sitcom ever, it did so without ever softening its edge. The secret? Consistency. For 18 years, no character has learned a single lesson. There's no redemption, no hugs, no closure, just 5 degenerates screaming at each other inside a bar that's somehow still open. And that honesty, that refusal to evolve for the sake of approval, is exactly why It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia became FX's eternal signature. NBC Modern Era, The Office. After Friends ended in 2004, NBC lost its identity. Its golden age of Thursday night sitcoms was over. Then, a mockumentary about paper salesmen from Scranton, Pennsylvania, quietly changed everything. The Office wasn't supposed to work. It was a remake of a British series that many said could never appeal to American audiences. But by its second season, it had done the impossible. Turned workplace boredom into one of the most relatable and rewatchable shows ever made. The magic came from tone. Every line felt improvised. Every silence deliberate. Michael Michael Scott's endless cringe, Jim's side-eye to camera, Dwight's unhinged loyalty. They weren't jokes. They were moments of recognition. Everyone watching had a Michael, a Pam, a Dwight somewhere in their own life. And that's why it hit deeper than a typical sitcom. By 2006, The Office became NBC's heartbeat. Steve Carell's performance turned him into one of Hollywood's biggest names, while writers like Mindy Kaling, B.J. Novak, and Paul Lieberstein crafted episodes that blended absurd comedy with genuine emotion. The Dundies, Jim and Pam's wedding, Michael's farewell, each became a piece of modern TV history. Its influence went far beyond NBC's ratings. Streaming revived it into an entirely new era. Between 2018 and 2021, The Office was the most-watched show on Netflix, beating every new production combined. That's when NBC realized something. Their old sitcom was more valuable than their new lineup, so they built their streaming service, Peacock, around it. What made The Office immortal wasn't the jokes. It was the humanity. Every awkward pause, every camera glance reminded viewers that real life is just organized chaos with bad lighting. It taught networks that subtlety could be louder than spectacle. And when Michael Scott walked out of Dunder Mifflin for the last time, NBC didn't just lose a character, it lost its greatest modern voice. The Office proved something powerful. You don't need glamour, catchphrases, or laugh tracks to make people laugh. You just need truth, timing, and a camera willing to stare at it too long. NBC's modern legacy was sealed right there in Scranton. Apple TV Plus, Ted Lasso. When Apple TV Plus launched in 2019, everyone doubted it could compete with Netflix and HBO. Then, a small, feel-good show about an American football coach managing a British soccer team quietly changed television's emotional temperature. Ted Lasso premiered in August 2020, right when the world was falling apart, and somehow made optimism cool again. Jason Sudeikis played a man completely out of his depth, yet armed with empathy so powerful, it disarmed cynicism itself. What began as a quirky sports comedy turned into one of the most humane sitcoms of the decade. Every character, from Rebecca's guarded bitterness to Roy Kent's volcanic rage, was written with layers. The show didn't run on jokes, it ran on healing. Each episode balanced locker room chaos with philosophy, kindness as a strategy, vulnerability as strength. Apple poured movie-level production quality into it, cinematic lighting, orchestral scores, and dialogue that felt more like mentorship than humor. Within a year, Ted Lasso had swept the Emmys, winning Outstanding Comedy Series twice, and giving Apple its first-ever cultural identity. For a tech company known for hardware, it had just built its emotional brand. What made it genius was balance. It wasn't naive optimism. It was optimism after failure. The jokes landed because the pain was real. Nate's betrayal, Ted's panic attacks, Rebecca's loneliness, all filtered through humor that felt lived in. Apple TV Plus didn't just air a sitcom, it launched a movement. In an era obsessed with sarcasm, Ted Lasso reminded everyone that heart still sells. Critics called it the anti-Curb Your Enthusiasm. Larry David dissected awkwardness. Ted healed it. And in doing so, Apple created the first true feel-good sitcom of the streaming age. Proof that hope, when written honestly, could still dominate the algorithm. Peacock, NBC revival, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. When Fox canceled Brooklyn Nine-Nine in 2018, fans revolted within hours. Hashtags trended worldwide. Celebrities begged for its return. And within 31 hours, NBC swooped in to resurrect it. It was the rare moment a network revived a show not because of numbers, but because of legacy. At its core, Brooklyn Nine-Nine was a workplace comedy wrapped inside a police precinct, but its real focus was humanity. It balanced absurd humor with social awareness better than almost any sitcom before it. Jake Peralta's immaturity, Holt's stoicism, Rosa's rage, Terry's warmth, every personality clashed, yet somehow formed a family. And NBC understood that this balance, chaos and compassion, fit perfectly with its DNA. The show thrived because it refused to compromise its values. It tackled racial profiling, police misconduct, and LGBTQ representation without ever losing its comedic rhythm. Captain Holt wasn't a stereotype. He was quiet rebellion personified, a gay black police captain commanding respect through intelligence instead of aggression. That kind of representation wasn't just rare. It was radical for a network comedy. NBC's revival gave the writers freedom, more serialized arcs, sharper dialogue, bigger risks. The move to Peacock later ensured it stayed alive for its cult audience, proof that the network streaming hybrid could actually work. By its final season in 2021, Brooklyn Nine-Nine had evolved from a clever police parody into a full-blown statement about friendship, morality, and identity, without ever forgetting to be funny. Its finale didn't aim for tears. It aimed for satisfaction. The Precinct Gang said goodbye not as heroes, but as flawed, lovable co-workers, exactly how fans met them 8 years earlier. NBC's decision to save Brooklyn Nine-Nine proved something every network had forgotten. Viewers don't just follow shows, they protect them. For NBC and Peacock, it wasn't a business win. It was a cultural rescue mission. And, in the end, Brooklyn Nine-Nine became what few sitcoms ever managed to be. A show that made people laugh, cry, think, and believe again in second chances. Paramount Plus, Frasier. When you talk about sophistication in sitcoms, only one name ever truly fits. Frasier Crane. Born as a spin-off from Cheers, Frasier shouldn't have worked on paper. A pompous psychiatrist hosting a radio show, sipping sherry, and quoting opera in a Seattle apartment. It sounded too intellectual for mainstream audiences. But in 1993, NBC and Paramount's television arm took the risk and ended up creating one of the most acclaimed comedies in history. Frasier wasn't about laughs per minute. It was about wit per second. The dialogue was symphonic, polished, rhythmic, and layered with double meanings. Kelsey Grammer and David Hyde Pierce played brothers so eloquent. Their petty arguments felt like Shakespearean theater performed in a living room. This wasn't a sitcom with punchlines. It was one long argument about taste, love, and ego, disguised as light comedy. And audiences loved it. Over 11 seasons, Frasier won 37 Emmy Awards, more than any sitcom before it. Its writing team treated humor like music, pacing every line to perfection. The show explored loneliness, family pride, and the absurd need to appear cultured, long before prestige TV existed. But what made it timeless was the emotional honesty behind all that sophistication. For all his arrogance, Frasier was deeply human, a man who could analyze everyone's problems except his own. His father, Martin, grounded him with working-class simplicity, balancing the show's intellectual humor with warmth. That tension between class and heart became Paramount's signature. In many ways, Frasier defined the adult sitcom era. It proved you could make people laugh without ever dumbing down. Even decades later, it remains the gold standard for dialogue-driven comedy, inspiring writers across Arrested Development, The Good Place, and even BoJack Horseman. Paramount didn't just produce Frasier, it helped define an entire generation's sense of humor. And in 2023, when Frasier was revived for the streaming era on Paramount Plus, it wasn't nostalgia, it was a homecoming. The refined voice of sitcom history returned to the platform that started it all. NBC's streaming era, The Good Place. By the mid-2000s, sitcoms had run out of safe ideas. Every workplace, every family, every friendship formula had been done. Then came The Good Place, a comedy that began in heaven and ended in philosophy class. Created by Michael Schur, the mind behind The Office and Parks, and Rec. The Good Place wasn't just another NBC show. It was a risk disguised as a punchline. It opened with a simple premise. Eleanor Shellstrop wakes up in the good place, an afterlife paradise, only to realize she's there by mistake. What followed wasn't religion. It was moral chaos, ethics, redemption, and existential dread delivered with sitcom pacing. It was revolutionary for network television. NBC allowed Schur to build each season like a philosophical experiment. The show taught Kant, Aristotle, and utilitarianism, yet somehow made it hilarious. Kristen Bell's performance gave it heart. Ted Danson's portrayal of Michael, the architect, gave it soul. Every episode asked a question no sitcom had dared to before. Can a bad person become good? That's what made it powerful. Beneath the jokes and frozen yogurt gags was a genuine exploration of humanity. It wasn't about punchlines. It was about progress, about characters growing in ways sitcoms usually avoid. By its final season, The Good Place had evolved beyond comedy into emotional closure. The finale, a quiet meditation on acceptance and impermanence, left millions of viewers in tears. It was the first time a sitcom ended not with applause, but peace. Critics called it one of the smartest shows ever aired on network TV, and they were right. It broke every structural rule, proved audiences could handle complex storytelling, and redefined NBC's modern identity. For decades, NBC was home to laughter. With The Good Place, it became home to reflection. It's rare for a sitcom to leave you thinking about life after death, and rarer still to make you laugh about it. The Good Place managed both, cementing its place as NBC's final great network experiment before streaming took over.